lectures that Professor Mora shared for contemporary thought. And we are very happy that you are here, especially we are informed very warmly Professor Quine, who has accepted to take the share here and to lecture for us during 15 days. Thank you very much for coming to Professor Gibson, Follisdale, Graham. I can announce you that next week Professor Donald Davidson will be with us. Thank you very much to all of you for coming. We are going to proceed that way. First of all, Professor Quine will talk for about 1 hour or more than 1 hour. It depends very much. Depends completely on him. And then we will open a dialogue so that I was tempted to say that it will be a dialogue without limits, but it's senseless to say that. It will have the limits of our physical resistance and of our common sense of prudence. Today is the first day, so it's not necessary to talk about everything today. We have 10 more sessions, and I hope we will have time enough to discuss them. If anyone has in these days any desires, wishes, complaints, or ideas, which wishes to propose to share, we would be very happy to satisfy those desires or requirements if it's possible. Because we will be happy if you are happy here. That's our goal. And since we have here in an exceptional way Professor Mora himself, who gives his name to the chair, I ask now Professor Mora to address the seminar. Thank you very much.
Simplement per agrair una vegada més que em podem anomenar ja avui l'Universitat de Girona. I en particular el professor Ricardes, que, com he dit més una vegada, però ens han de passar a repetir, és l'ànima d'aquesta càtedra. És ell realment el que la porta des del començament fins a aquest moment i espero que sigui per molts anys. I will now say a few words in English, not about Professor Quine, he's not Professor W. Very short story. Yesterday, we were having dinner with Professor Quine and his colleague, Professor Ricardes, and suddenly Professor Quine mentioned, reminisced about the lecture which he gave, I don't remember exactly, 1949, 1950, 1951, a lecture which he gave at Vilmore. It was my first year of teaching. And I had to interrupt him and say, please, don't mention that because I'm going to mention it tomorrow. And that's why I'm mentioning it now. This was almost 50 years ago. And he came to the lecture, the so-called Laguna lecture. You know, of course, I knew his work, but I was very impressed. Because the lecture was, of course, a perfect lecture. It was not deconstructed at all. On the contrary, it was constructed from the beginning to the end. It was a lecture, I'm sure you've read something about that, because it was on identity. I don't know whether his first thoughts on identity, but he has dealt with this problem very thoroughly in the course of his career. So, at the end of the lecture, someone asked me, what do you plan to do in life? I said, I really don't know. But I would like one day to be able to introduce Professor Quine. Well, that's it. That's today. 50 years later. Of course, I should not say anything about him because his work is sufficiently well known and he will talk to you. Actually, what I could do is to read from my own dictionary of philosophy, the article which I devoted to Professor Quine, which is relatively up to date, relatively because it doesn't include, let's say, critiques or truth. But I'm not going to do that. On the other hand, I'm going to refer to another dictionary, a very curious dictionary, and I want to correct the dictionary in the following manner. There is a philosophical lexicon not well known anywhere except in the departments of philosophy in the United States, where names are presented of people in very curious ways. I'll give you two examples. For instance, let's suppose that you want to know everything about Karnak. Now, Karnak is a name here, and it's defined as follows: a formally defined symbol, operator, special bit of notation. Example: his prose is better to Karnak. That's a little light for those who are from here. As if we, for instance, Quine, a new term for predestined, and you suppose that it's a verb, to recover. That would mean to pursue with enthusiasm, the word pursue. So you say, well, it was going to happen the whole day long. Well, another example maybe, for instance, that's earlier using cover mask, but it isn't cover mask. There is another one which is answer mask. Definition: a religious. This is also a name. A religious ceremony designed to engender an illusion of understanding through chants describe socio-economic conditions. For instance, it paragraphs and it meant to diffuse a specialty of religion from the social structure of the Zurich patent office. Well, of course, there is a name Quine, but this is fairly mistaken. I want to do the correction there. Quine is a verb, to whine. So then you use as a verb, and the definition that is given here, I think, is not correct. To whine, to deny resolutely existence or importance of something real or significant. I think that it should be the opposite. To deny resolutely existence or importance of anything that doesn't exist or is not significant at all. Example of that, some philosophers have Quine like the ones that are I would say that I would really find that Quine means to cut, to eliminate unnecessary things. For instance, he quined the whole word of Derrida. That would make some sense. At any rate, I think that this is what we have here, but I would like just to read a few words. Maybe this will give the impression, I remember one passage from Professor Quine in one of his articles, in which he claimed to like deserts. Well, I also do, aesthetically speaking. And you make an impression that he's a person who is always liking deserts and nothing else. He is one of the most curious persons I've met in the moments I've seen him. Mainly his interest in many things. So that in philosophy he may like deserts, but in everything else he likes jungles. For instance, in the last 3 days, he has been able to master more Catalan than, let's say, some people from Tordesillas in 35 years of practice. So this is the person we have here today, and I thank him very much for having this time.
Agradezco las palabras graciosas del señor Mora, señor Carras. Era tal vez hace 50 años que yo presencié el diccionario, la primera edición del diccionario de filosofía del señor Mora. Nos gusta mucho a mi esposa y a mí estar más una vez en España, hace la 7ª visita nuestra en España y la segunda en Cataluña. pero la primera en Cataluña era hace 40 años. Era solamente hasta Seo de Urgel, desde el Principado de Andorra hasta Seo de Urgel. Es la primera vez en esta hermosa ciudad de Gerona. Bueno, tanto para el idioma castellano. We and other animals notice what goes on around us. It helps us somehow to suggest what to expect, even sometimes to suggest how we might prevent it. It fosters survival. But it works imperfectly. There are surprises. These are unsettling. How can we tell when we're right? There's a problem of error. There were these words about knowledge, about our knowledge of the external world, a way back. To deal with them, men had to turn inward. They had to seek knowledge about knowledge. How did they know? How did we get knowledge? In this we were unlike other animals. We proceeded to seek knowledge of ourselves. No face on, as Socrates had it, and according to some ancient authorities, even Thales, know thyself, and so on down to present times. Philosophy, from the very beginning, that is the very beginning that we know, namely in Thales, concerned not just oneself, but everything, the cosmos. However, I have a notion that it may have been sparked by unease over knowledge and how to determine whether we're right or not. Anyway, this unease was conspicuous in Greek antiquity and since. Zeno's paradoxes were calculated to show us how we were more ignorant than we supposed. Well, and how do we know? Plato's notion was that we apprehend ideas, and these ideas were forms. For him, they were essences of things. And how did we apprehend forms? Well, it was innate, he seemed to think, but blurred. We're born with apparently apprehension of ideas, but they're blurred by what William James on a later occasion called the blooming, buzzing confusion. It's as if knowledge somehow were natural, and Plato was trying to explain why we have it more constructively than we do, rather than how do we ever get it. It was to be evoked from the dim mists of memory, or almost forgotten memory. And how was it evoked? It was by dialectic, dialogue. But also, in spite of all this, Plato seemed to see the need of observation. It's hard to imagine how anyone could help appreciating the need of observation. Say the phenomena, say the appearances, so take that phenomena. Well, I don't want to venture a coherent synthesis of Plato. This concern with the ways and limits of knowledge continues unabated down to today, of course. And still in ancient times, the sophists concocted paradoxes and deceptions also in order to discredit our ways of knowing, in order to show people how badly off we are in that respect. Skeptics took the melancholy conclusions to heart. Aristotle tried to shore up our ways of knowing. with his doctrine of the syllogism. Eudoxus and Euclid did better. They far surpassed Aristotle in the ways of knowing, but only by example, not by precept. Aristotle tried to formulate precepts. Eudoxus and subsequently Euclid outpaced any theoretical methodology of Aristotle's part, and really extraordinary perceptiveness and imaginativeness and rigorous reasoning and geometry. And simply for natural science, it was remarkably serious and successful. I think Eratosthenes, who had the circumference of not only the shape but the size of the Earth to an extraordinarily accurate point. Well, I mean, surprising for the time, how many percent I forget. But then darkness descended. The mists of myth returned, and mysticism for 1,000 years. The one way of, in that period, the one way of knowledge was authority. Notably the authority of Aristotle. But where did he get his knowledge? Well, there was a threat of an egress there. But the medievals managed to cut through that quickly enough. Revelation, God was the break in the egress. And this doctrine was unassailable, it would seem. You can't very well question this doctrine of authority and revelation without abandoning it and thereby begging the question. Well, finally, 1290, we got Ryder Bacon. We did beg the question in that manner. Observation and experiment, these were the ways. And science from along in that period onward was slowly taking form. We have to give it another 250 years to get to Copernicus. There was a real breakthrough that put science on the track, unmistakably. He put sun at the center, of course, and for 1,400 years, Ptolemy, the astronomers, what fewer there were of them scattered over that long period, were trying to accommodate the Earth, the center of the universe, with their cycles and epicycles. But at last, Copernicus saw his way around it and through it. But the traditionalists tried to hold the line. It was even 100 years later that they clergy prosecuted Galileo for supporting Copernicus, his theory. One's reminded of that by the efforts nowadays of the creationists, struggling 130 years after Darwin. However, 50 years after Galileo returned, 150 after Copernicus, science attained its full stature with Newton, 1687. Newton's Philosophia Naturalis, Principia Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica. But even earlier, and this amazed me, Röder had determined the finitude of the speed of light even before Newton. And not bad, off 20% it seems. Well, so those were 150 years from Copernicus to Newton's Principia. And in the middle of that period, Sir Francis Bacon, Lord Barrow, took up the question of ways of knowing. So that's we're getting back again into philosophy of oneself and the philosophy of knowledge, seeking knowledge of knowledge. Now there was something really something substantial to think about, because some pretty substantial knowledge had come before us. Sir Francis Bacon had the advantage in that respect over Roger Bacon, who was speculating on how to get knowledge when there wasn't really very much at hand. But Francis Bacon had the wisdom of hindsight, as science was thriving. In between Bacon and Newton, contemporary with both of them, we get Hobbes and Descartes. They were contemporary also, in the sense of overlapping, live overlapping with both of them, with Galileo and with Kepler. Hobbes was 14 years younger than Galileo, and he was inspired, of course, by Galileo's strides. Hobbes was an utter materialist, a mechanist, in fact, like Democritus with his atoms. There's nothing Hobbes felt except matter and motion. In that respect, he agreed with Democritus. Thought for Hobbes was motion of the particles in the brain. We have our ideas about the world. But were we getting them right? Well, there's still that problem. Hobbes' notion was coherence, that these ideas fit together, and this gives us the basis for pushing ahead, and we proceed with a conviction that it's true. Truth is agreement of ideas with one another. So, how do we know about this mechanistic world that is supposed to account for what these ideas are? It's just that we have apparently a coherent model which conforms, as far as we've been able to see, to our perceptions, these perceptions being, in turn, ideas. And therefore, according to this coherent theory itself, the movements activated in the brain. Well, this has a side of the modern brain. And notice in particular the modern use of the word idea, because for Plato, and right down to Hobbes' time perhaps, that had meant a form, a form in nature, a natural, the essence of an object, rather than something in the mind, much less in the brain. Well, as I say, it may have been the beginning of it. I get that notion from the Oxford English Dictionary, where they quote the first use of the term in English that they have been able to find in that particular sense. In this case, the mental or mentalistic sense of the word idea, they cite Hobbes for that. And it's ironical, it seems to me, Plato's ideas, after all, they were the real thing. They were what was eternal. They were the eternal form. Matter was just appearance. For Hobbes, matter was the real thing. Ideas were the appearance or conjecture in our brains regarding matter. Descartes was 8 years younger than Hobbes. He was more conservative. He followed Christian dogma in his dualism. It was the soul on the one hand, the body on the other. There was the body and soul, the mind and body, two interacting substances. The mind was the repository of ideas. Here we do have the word idea being used in the following clause in the mentalistic way that is customary today. Descartes, unlike Hobbes, faced up to that question, how do we know? Faced up more fully than Hobbes would seem with his spirit of coherence. obviously leads open the question, how does it connect up with matter? Except, of course, strangely enough, that the idea is consistent matter, it was movement in the head matter. Descartes, on the other hand, accepted tentatively, of course, total skepticism, tried that, but he quickly reduced that to absurdity because, as he pointed out, he couldn't very well doubt that he was trying to doubt. And so there was a corollary that he, anyhow, existed. And then he did some more reasoning, and further reasoning produced a proof of the existence of God. In fact, he came up with 4 proofs of the existence of God. He had been anticipated in various of these 4, but he marshaled all of them to suggest that he sensed that he was on more treacherous ground over the question of the existence of God than over the question of the existence of himself, which certainly was progress. The corollary was the corollary of the, in turn, of the theorem that God exists, was the existence of matter. Well, how did that follow from the existence of God? God was good, that by definition. And being good wouldn't deceive us, wouldn't give us clear ideas that were even so false, and we do have a clear idea of matter. So, it must be matter. And so he swings into the question, how he knows, in this way, clear and distinct ideas. Because the clear ones that we're endowed with by God. The confused ones are where error lies. So Descartes was echoing Plato's innate knowledge, it would seem, reminiscent somewhat in his divine revelation, God-given dependability in the way of clear ideas. It doesn't seem to have been so much Plato's influence in Descartes' case as the example of natural knowledge, and more particularly the example of mathematical knowledge, because, of course, Descartes' real strength, as we think of it, was in mathematics. But then, this apparently was behind Plato also. Behind Plato had great admiration for mathematics, such as it was in his day, so that perhaps was a factor even in Plato's notion of his theory of reminiscence as a basis for knowledge. In fact, we see his attitude towards mathematics reflected in the dialogue at the Meno, where he teaches the slave bits of mathematics by coaxing the necessary axioms out of the slave's unconscious, out of the slave's innate obscured memory. There were a period of 4 years there, 1646 to 1650, when 5 neoclassical philosophers were living: Hobbes, Descartes, Spinoza, Leibniz, and Locke. And for us, for me, what I want to go on with, the next step is Locke. Locke shunned Descartes' theological epistemology. Like Hobbes, Locke sought truth and coherence of ideas. The material world was real for Locke, but it was known only through, and only tentatively, by coherence from our ideas. But the ideas included sense experience, the ideas included sensations, as they did for Descartes, just these mental entities generally. And the world caused these sensations. These were the simple ideas. The others were compounded from them. No place for abstract ideas, so we claim. And here we have an echo of opposite materialism, is materialistic nominalism. And furthermore, he very explicitly had no use for innate ideas. Innate ideas were out, along with the abstract ideas. Well, then we come to Berkeley, 50 years younger than Locke. He saw no cogency in Hobbes's or Locke's inference growth from coherence of our theory. Coherence of ideas, all very well, but what does that prove about the material world, if indeed there's such there be? His conclusion was that nothing does exist except what is directly perceived. And what did that include? Just sensory patterns, just occurrences perhaps of sensory patterns. He was more generous. There were souls. We perceive our souls. And there was God, somehow. But no matter. It wasn't any matter. But there were enduring substitutes for matter. A perceived tree endures between times. And how is that if nothing exists without being perceived? Because the answer was it was perceived by God. And that's where we have these, in fact, many of you are familiar with this pair of lyrics quoted, but they're due to Sir Ronald Knox and quoted by Bertrand Russell in one of his books, in his history of philosophy. There was a young man who said, God must think it exceedingly odd that this tree that I see should continue to be when there's no one about in the quad. And then comes the answer. Dear sir, your astonishment's odd. I am always about in the quad. And that's why the tree will continue to be since observed by yours faithfully, God. So this positing of eternal, enduring objects between presentations, I would say this is the essential point of matter, and that it's rather equivocal when Berkeley claims that there is no matter. So how much more does he want? Isn't that the decisive point? That continuing, well, of course, in order to get around that and sustain the quibble, he postulates God, again without, I think in this case, without even four proofs of Descartes. I think that this is a point I'll be coming back to, this essential character of matter, of existence, of external. Surely for an infant who learns the word ball, when presented with a ball, and then will utter the word when he wants the ball again, or when he sees it again, he'll recognize it by name, but presumably that's no different from coming up with a word for a cool breeze or for thunder. It's not a question, the question doesn't arise of it's being the same ball or one like it, that very notion of same and different. Is it the same thunder, or is it more thunder like it? Is it the same breeze, or another breeze like it? These are sophisticated questions, and it's only, as you see to me, with the development of motion of external objects that it begins to make sense. So it has, is this the same ball or another one like it? It's the enduring in between, unobserved. This is something that surely is very sophisticated in our development language and our acquisition of language and knowledge of the world. When you consider what goes into it, the notion of unseen trajectories from one place, time to another, of an object that we see only terminals of the trajectory, it makes sense to us to wonder whether a particular coin, a moneda, is the same one, or one like it, in my pocket a week later. And we won't know, we don't care. But if there was some reason we wanted to determine that, think of the conjectures that would be involved. Wearing the same jacket as a week ago, has been to the cleaners meanwhile. What were the expenditures in between? Where have you been? All these conjectures about a very complicated external world with the interlocking forces, all our conception of space and time. It's a good deal to ask of an infant, and a good deal to ask of a dog. I wonder whether dogs recognize in that sense. They recognize an individual person, yes, but that's qualitative, but this is by smell. This is where matter, it would seem to me, comes into its own, and Berkeley was taken into his stride without seeing the problem in it. Well, we're given the knowledge by God. So I say, in effect, Berkeley does assume matter, and then he reconciles it with essayist, effectively, by adding God. Then, coming Hume, 26 years younger than Berkeley, he subsided in as perhaps Locke really had in ignorantness. It's not going to be a question really of knowing whether the external world exists or not. We have our ideas, but not explicitly denying either, as Berkeley does. But Hume did recognize the difficulty over identifying objects that were absent in between, identifying them over time. He put it down to a confused use of the predicate of identity. That we're loosely speaking of the ball as being identical with the ball now. Actually, they're only alike. So he was rubbing out the identification, or not worrying about it sufficiently. Well, this was classical British empiricism, of course. They agreed that all our lore about the world is a fabric of ideas, and ultimately of simple sensory elements, because the complex ideas were compounded somehow, although certainly never became clear in detail, of the simple ideas. The simple ideas being, in Hume's term, impressions. This whole matter of how to combine them remained pretty well untouched. The whole idea is a frail read, certainly. It's not something that one easily gets to grip on. Even the sense quality is that the simplest of the ideas is elusive unless it's graced by a public language. There's this consideration, I don't know whether it's a correct interpretation of Wittgenstein. Anyway, I think of it as Wittgenstein, that we might leave an argument against private language. Is the context in this case that if someone was naming things on his own, not communicating with anybody else. Here he has this particular sensation, a sensory experience, and he applies a name to it. And then after a while, here it comes again. Thingamabob again, you get back to William James's terminology. Third time, fourth time, thingamabob, right down the line. But there's no checking. And there's certainly no reason not to expect a certain slippage, one direction or another. No experience is quite identical, presumably, next time around. It's a little bit different. But he's been using this term for a year or so. Would the two termini, the origin and the latest, be similar enough even to be usually recognizable, or slippage of computer out of hand? There's no way of telling. Where language comes in, and where society makes all the difference, is that other people who have picked up the word and learned to apply the word to that in the presence of that experience, they'll be slipping too, but at random, relative to one another, slipping in different directions, and then in the effort of communication, they get everyone being brought back to line, so that a norm survives, which is a center of gravity of all these variants. And it's society that gives us, in this way, ultimately identity of recurrent, even of recurrent experiences, let alone enduring objects. Well, still we speak of the purpose of language as communication of ideas. We learn a word from our elders. We associate it with the same ideas. Later, to communicate, supposedly we say the word in order to conjure up the same idea in our listener. How do we know we're getting the same idea? Telepathy, that's not part of our scientific expectations. Words are what we have to go on, and ideas are as may be. And it was John Horn took in the late 18th century, in fact 1776, was when John Horn Tooke's book, Happy Teruenta, or the Diversions of Pearl, came out. Winged Words, or the Diversions of Pearl. And he came out for words and urged dropping the idea of ideas. No, 1786 it was. So that was 10 years after his death. He wrote as follows, John Horn Tooke. I only desire you to read Locke's essay over again, with attention to see whether all that its immortal author has justly concluded will not hold equally true and clear if you substitute the composition, etc., of ideas, wherever he has supposed a composition, etc., composition, etc., of terms, wherever he has supposed a composition, etc., of ideas. He was echoing William O'Backham and the other, up to the point, the other medieval nominalists who dismissed abstract objects as conscious focus, vocal breeze, you might say, hot air. It was a step towards linguistic, the linguistic turn, as Richard Bertie has called it. And it was calculated to facilitate the composition of a system of the world. Putting words together, that's something we can get our teeth into the way we can't relate to ideas. compounding language is clear and easy enough, although you can't get very far with it when it comes to getting all the words that we would like for our science. But anyway, with words, as far as we carry their composition, we can see what they're doing. Well then, much further freedom was gained after John Horne took, by his further step was taken by his contemporary, Jeremy Bentham, another Englishman, in the construction or derivation of concepts, by not insisting on compounding of simple terms. It was Bentham's so-called theory of fictions. His suggestion was explain a word in a context by supplying a sentence which is equivalent to the whole context. So you're giving the meaning of the sentence that contains the word by equating it to another sentence. But that other sentence doesn't necessarily have any correspondence with the successive words of the original sentence. They just add up to the same net effect. So the limitation to compounding was transcended. Well, contextual definition, as we know it from Russell, especially, Russell's doctrine of incomplete symbols. This is a somewhat further refinement of Bentham's idea. Bentham's idea was, here you have a sentence containing a word. Typically for Bentham, it would be some political word. Maybe it would be democracy. Maybe it would be freedom. And someone challenges the meaning of the word. Someone simply doesn't know the meaning of the word. You didn't have to find a long phrase which you can substitute for it. But just explain the sentence in which he used the word. The sentence had puzzled his listener. He supplies another sentence instead. So that takes care of that particular context of the word. The further step to Russell is explain the word for all its uses by explaining all its contexts. It's going to have an infinite number of them, longer and longer sentences, but they can all be got down to a finite compass because there'll be only a limited number of immediate contexts, and find an equivalent for each of those immediate contexts. And list them all, and then you've got the full explanation, all you need for the word. So that was very liberating. Of course, one thing it inevitably led to was an appreciation of the sentence rather than the word as the basic vehicle of meaning. It's the sentence that you understand, and then you understand the words simply by abstraction from the sentences that they contribute to. And this was this point was urged by Frege. That was along the 1880s and 90s. It's a point that had been debated in ancient India. Debates had gone on in Sanskrit to see whether the word or the sentence was the vehicle of meaning, and of course there is this dilemma. Sentences are infinite in number. You can't explain every one of them separately. How do we learn sentences? We learn a vocabulary, a limited vocabulary, and we learn how to combine them. And so we build up sentences without limit of length by rules from this finite vocabulary. So the sentences are, the words are the source of our understanding of the sentences. But then here are these considerations from, for instance, from Bentham or Russell, and similar, and some considerations apparent to the same effect in ancient India even, suggesting that you get the meaning of the word for sentences. And both are right. And of course the answer is this, that we learn some short sentences or some single words. You get down to the minimum length, and I think there's no distinction. Learning a word like ball, a word like milk, is that different in the case of the infant from there's a ball, or there's milk, or want some milk? The sentence word. One gets further words by ostension, learn how to put them together, more longer sentences. Then, in a Bentham sort of way, finding equivalent sentences to sentences that you've already learned in the synthetic way, will give you some new words buried in those sentences. You learn those words by abstraction from the sentences. Contextual, it turns out the contextual definition was anticipated way back by Eudoxus, according to Euclid. This is one of those impressive examples, really, of ancient mathematics, it seems to be. Here you have what he wants to explain is he wants to explain irrational ratios, to speak in paradox. That is to say, ratios between irrational numbers. A ratio like pi over square root of 2, for instance. A over b equals c over d. And the explanation seems was for all numbers n and n, and these are going to be integers. M times a up here is greater than n times b. Greater than, well, say greater than, if and only. Because it could be, doesn't matter if it's only for one again. M times c greater than n times d. And likewise for less than, and likewise for equal to. He hasn't equated a over b with anything. He can't. There's no such thing in the previously existing ontology of numbers, namely ratios between whole numbers between integers. But this shows how, at least, it makes sense the whole equation containing such ratios, and as long as he sticks to equations for context, there's no further problem. So here was the textual definition. Then they came into vogue again in the early or middle 19th century, notably George Boole, who was one of the pioneers in modern logic, or one of the last of the medieval editions, depending how you look at it. He was also an important mathematician in other branches. And he made quite a thing of these symbols in the differential calculus. This sort of thing. Here you have, say, the partial derivatives now of the x squared and of fxyz and with respect to y squared, same thing, and z squared. And Boole's trick notification. And so collect terms, group all these together, rub these out. So that here he has what seems to be a sum of three strange things, not numbers, operators, but treating them as if they were quantities, as if they were numbers, and as if this were multiplication. And then in another few years, this was found useful enough so that this whole thing was abbreviated as, well, it was an inverted delta. So that became standard mathematical practice. And in fact, it was this, according to Russell himself, it was this that inspired him to his doctrine of degree symbols. The doctrine that is familiar to us, first of all, from Russell's 1905 paper on denoting. But it's in the introduction to Principia Mathematica that Russell mentions that, yes, it was this, as they call it, that gave him the idea, which he extended then to his definition of singular description, the object X, such that Fx. Well, and so then this way of doing things was pointed in Principia Mathematica. That was the most spectacular and extensive use of reduction to a pretty small set of basic terms, reduction of a tremendous essentially the full vocabulary of classical mathematics. Later in Principia, further progress reduces the entire lexicon of classical mathematics to just a single predicate, namely the two-place predicate epsilon of membership, x epsilon y, x a member of y, together with just a minimum of logical symbols, say the universal quantifier here, and the and or the and not of which reduce the term, as you know, to just an either nor or a not both, as you please, between sentences. Just this and universal quantification with its variables, and epsilon. Contextual definition is very much the way of it, right down the line. Yes, I was going to carry out examples of that, defining the number 3 finally. But time marches on. Anyway, I think maybe there's a point that because then I want to move on to Arnaud, because some feeling of the kind of thing that happens is all about in the way of trying to fulfill the empiricist dream.